Dear Elon Musk, I put a link to your offer to pay the legal fees. The Interbranch Connecticut are refusing to identify themselves legitimately because I recorded them putting fake transcripts in databases in collusions with crime scenes through time. There are proofs then further too. All sides of criminal and civil cases, the crime scenes, including body dumping spots relative, and the World Trade Center attack, and the spots next to it, the same names that have upskirt pictures on Twitter with FBI themed upskirt pictures on Twitter, further involved with the principal upskirt nature in the Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts. I found also peaceful people with district court with about it, were about it, but with Hartford courts and New Britain Superior Court affected confessions to me from and Eric Burgess, which is also involved, confirmed after the World Trade Center attack. And I tried to get help for the things he recorded, help asked me for help for, and I learned how they won't do it. If you try to go to mental health care people, they'll steal your identity, put you in fake conversations with themselves. Then to hide that, they have other people that put you in fake conversations too. You never had a conversation with. You can't get them on paper because they have multiple courts, families, personally and professionally, criminally involved with them, and with crime scenes, and with it locked in at the same house slash S involved with multiple natures of courts, families, and wire crime acts and methods. And CBS faked conversations with me about this. They also have the roles with victims advocates with multiple boyfriends of girls since they were kids, tied to their roles with Central Connecticut State Universities with abuses of those girls and use slash S of them with where and how. All ages and natures of investigations and investigators in their campuses were all kept criminally for influence, tactically delusions wrought. Years after a Joe DeMoro and a Christopher Cullen recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they're involved with judicial corruption, with sexual medical offenders of kids, and recorded with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, not legitimately with foreign and domestic military all along Route 3 and the state judicial branch offices in conjunctions to it and the state corrections offices. And their educators also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed them involved with collusions with Joe Aiello and others recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed Mayor Gold, the former Mayor Gold, and his family has a bunch of people that didn't even go to my grammar school. Collusions with people that went to my grammar school I never had a conversation with, never even saw them around, putting fake things in databases, trying to make fake exceptions with some of them, tied to the mayors, involved with untimely deaths and body dumping spots years apart. Totally different ones brought up at the same time, years apart too, while they were doing the same predicate acts methods recording. A bunch of people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Brian Bonin did too. He's got roles of people involved with the Board of Education and with DACA, involved with a whole bunch of different countries, involved with a Brian Bonin and people all along Route 3 in conjunctions to it and to that. Like Hang Dog Lane, where it runs into Two Rod Highway and Route 3 and the Burlington Turnpike before the heart of Hartford. Three spots at the end of the Burlington Turnpike. John Montano sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, repeat. He has confirmed collusion slash S there with families involved with the intelligence community, foreign and domestic, on all sides of Hartford Hospital too, with sexual and medical offenders of kids, identity theft, fraud, slanders, all kinds of evidence is racketeering, worse than war crimes. Who New Britain Superior Court has him recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed involved also, and they're switching names and they have women judges involved, and they looked over and they have some sick detective Samuda looking at the judge, and these are some black white female judges involved with some black KKK, Confederate flag theme, Latino theme, Italian theme, identity theft, fraud, things, planting evidence is at next to the campuses and intra cities, and on my street with confessions. That, and even on Facebook, it's recorded. I never even had a word of conversation in real life with Robert Rodriguez. He confirmed on Facebook. See, they take my Facebook pages when people were confirming things tied to this. Because before the World Trade Center attack, I recorded people involved with the attack on all sides. They had times that were used remotely in Saudi Arabia's name, in America's name, and the people voicing for it are still used remotely. because you guys came through campuses A through Z, sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly too, replacing and self-valuing having been replaced. How nature itself communicated to us and how our founders communicated to us. Consciousness that there was a breaching method entrenched, and it was forced roles with all subjects, therefore, forcing everyone to be syntax, nature, tactical, ulterior from how nature needs us too. Now you guys are incapable of being it by nature properly, or of affording anyone to be it for you, even though you long this. We have we have black people's whites of eyes. We had nature telling us our whole lives about relativity, slash hyper relativity, even. If you want to pay attention honestly, insanely. Psychiatry right through world wars. Psychiatry has roles with the interbranch and concentrated, it's only concentrated corruption with them, with that science because of their roles with the prisons and with the courts, all sides of criminal and civil cases. The differences between the people being mean against the police with their syntax, or the police forms being mean against the people. That is used remotely too, but you guys aren't preventing free speech. You're changing fake what people say when we bring up relative predicate acts. In other words, Hartford, Connecticut, please respond to me. Weathersfield, Connecticut, please respond to me. Someone, honestly. New Britain, Connecticut, please respond to me. They put fake things when I first said, please respond. I asked people from Weathersfield for help. The people recorded tied to the proven and forcing it at the time on Facebook has collusion /S with people across internet platforms, with prosecutors and judges with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents. They had obligations to speak about how the breaching method only allowed roles with differences. And when we put the people in the acting positions, when we're in the switch the colors for part of this movie, and we should do it for a whole sitcom, we can donate, we can make hyper positives out of negatives. But in other words, anyone with black pupils, whites of eyes can see that anyone's a fake. Only fakes are allowed to speak where black-white is brought up. Otherwise, it would have surfaced the breaching method replaced what nature communicates. And it would have surfaced, James Madison also communicated for this. You have only either heard people framing our founders for slavery and or defending them as collusion /as, oh, they own slaves with that. They didn't own slaves. Our founders told us to describe them as plural unknown founders, unnamed, and to describe why and how, to understand why and how they did not have free speech. There was a torture, extortion, slavery method against every difference, and then further against every human difference entrenched. And there was an extent of collusion /S with that manifest in the fact, treatment, nature, quality, aspects, and nature of every individual, including of every group or any modern country. Otherwise, that body was sensed and it was easily adapted to. Even easier when there are groupings of countries, as voicings tactically ulterior from how we are an individual species body of a whole bunch of individual bodies. Part of this nature system shows us that it generates all group differences. It shows us this to an extent /S. It generates two eyes across species bodies. It generates two sexes across species bodies. They have roles with the word pronoun. With the campuses, they have roles with sexual identities. Those people are involved with fake transcripts with judges and prosecutors, with sexual medical offenders of kids, victims advocates, and types of counters and types of crimes have collusion /S with you /S. I've recorded a bunch of ways how all ages and natures of investigators were are used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw predicate acts with facts, predators, databases tied predators, while delusions raw too. And they're going to speak about the quote, black pupils, here, all sides. It's clear. In other words, you guys won't even allow people to use evidence the way it's recorded. Already, everyone was recorded. All sides of criminal and civil cases showing they need to hide the same sequence shifts, finite, criminally foreign influence, fact, nature, quality, aspects of nature with the courts in the other countries at the same time, or worse. This breaching method designed the suburbs before America's founders were born. You guys, all kinds of wrong outcomes. This breaching method, again, it makes consciously. It even just changes and fakes what was the outcome in the case in legal cases. Channel 3 News is leaking. They would rather leak and pretend other because they're being coached sometimes, well, some ways by the people that have fake conversations with me with them, and some ways by the others with it. They use rights to lie where they don't have the right to lie. They have readings of statutes and precedents they can't afford to have discerned over the internet at countries A through Z. They can't afford. There are all kinds of means to stack different natures of industry. There are all kinds of obligations each country can discern. The breaching method and the other countries' roles with it a little bit better than the other countries, where America has a means to discern at best. No one is prevented. Everyone is prevented free speech to use correlation and speak about what's actually properly recorded history. But it's gotten away. We are sensed, and they get away with it by all these sick, criminally foreign influence takes on. At quality aspects of nature are the names of the people of sciences like American history, and with psychiatry, delusions raw, while criminally foreign influence tactically delusions raw. They're having to attach people to fake conversations about and change conversations about religion because they're forcing people to take drugs, and people are going to say, well, they're going to say, oh, it's against my religion. It's supposed to be their constitutional what amendment. Don't have to know the amendment. They have all kinds of predicate acts methods against the people. They owe more money than we need at Hartford Hospital. There are only like 500 streets in Hartford. And these people are in intercities involved with the Leahy family. And they have multiple judges and prosecutors putting fake things in databases with them and with their kids too. Whole generations, males and females of a Leahy family at Hartford Hospital, fake conversations with me, ties through the mail. They have a bunch of judges and prosecutors personally and professionally involved with them and with their syntax over the media too, and regarding their homes and their family members. They put them for fake motivations. They put me in fake ties with them. O'Neill family has me fake ties to themselves. Never met them in my life. They have collusions of whiting forensics with a principal child abuser. They're pretending to worry about their kids because of fake conversations they pretended over the phone. They didn't even let me speak. What I caught them doing worse than they put the principal and child abuser in prison for, reportedly. And that prison had collusion /S with the same names who were planting evidences on the streets associated with the kids and on their own streets and in the parallel streets. It's a method where they get people involved in conversations where they keep stupid fake, also showing fake things, integrity, including by the news, all sides of criminal and civil cases, the crime scenes, in criminal enterprises, private ones, people with body dummy spots next to it, even when they're not in the cases, time rolls remotely used of the people with the hallways of the courts too. A bunch of people with the hallway of the court through time. Recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirm, further involved with some Mendez, Wethersfield police. Fake conversation, man. I heard a word of conversation with older police brother. The other one's planting evidences in people with the state judicial branch offices and his educators behind my back. They said this. He's just one of the many names. I already saw him around campuses. They try to make quick fake exceptions consciously. That's where judges and prosecutors have been criminally foreign influenced with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and sexuals and medical offenders of kids tied to people associated with the Mendez family and former Mayor Gold and former relatives and people tied to the other former mayors, like a Ruth next to the state education department involved with untimely deaths, and one at Trinity College with a whole bunch of people tied to Joshua Stryker with Washington, D.C., and in the World Trade Center involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, foreign and domestic military, and people with the state judicial branch offices involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. This little fake punk has been spreading lies about me behind my back with people tied to former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, and worse, since I was a kid and other people too. These are people that are increasingly used as collusions with all sides of criminal and civil cases in interbranch and foreign at the same time, layers of other. needing to hide the same sequence shifts, the same quality aspects of bacterial nature that is really blamed on things like politics, blamed on things like criminal foreign influences wrongly until those things are real more and more. The breaching method hides behind and through that. The breaching, torture, extortion, and slavery method that James Madison left us to communicate about. Connecticut Interbranch switches names and sequences. They have a bunch of people involved. A bunch of people. I never had a conversation with a Charlie Bowes. A bunch of intelligence people recorded confirmed. Christopher Walters too has roles with all kinds of medical corruption and various natures of drugs with his mother and a Bose family, involved with medical and sexual offenders of kids on my street associated with them, and their roles next to campuses with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and people with public campuses and private campuses, mixing them together as collusion slash us putting fake things tied to the acting, tied to the predicate acts with the databases. They should not have hid what I recorded when I was a kid. Increasingly, people with former Wethersfield police chiefs, police chief Cintron, is increasingly recording, confessing, demonstrating, confirming through others. I never had a word of conversation with him and with the fake officers that pretended I had conversations with them, and at the Wethersfield Police Department. It wasn't all when I was a kid, and I was an adult. Increasingly, there has collusion with a bunch of people at the corners of Elm Streets in Rocky Hill and Route 3, in Rocky Hill and in Wethersfield. And between that is the state judicial branch offices. They also have wire crimes with the Wethersfield police, wire crime methods. Wethersfield Pizza House, too, has a Stephen Stockwell. I never had, the only sentence I ever said to him, is Maria there? He hung up and called the Wethersfield police with a passion crime. I never had a word of conversation with him on my campus. My campus is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. He's involved with people involved with child abusers, people through who placed him in the class with me and hid what was recorded there. Two, how and why Ray Clow wanted me to feel bad. They knew he would feel bad and want to go to the prom with me. And right when my father was going to be timed there, he like these intelligence people time when people are going to be there, and they're planting things and sense and sensibilities. They're attaching little kids to fake and changed conversations with their family members, as people all too, putting fake ties, fake natures of ties to their family members. And through the years, they're building upon that. There's a Casper family who's also involved with a Robert Heimgartner and others, kids from my grammar school, who have roles with people from Russia and people from Ukraine and people from Korea, involved with some sexual and medical offenders from Italy, from and other, Saudi Arabia too. Saudi Arabia, before the World Trade Center attack, they didn't want anything to do with psychiatry. All exceptions, exception nature, though that's used remotely. See, countries A through Z, their delusions wrought, they're incapable of speaking for the sciences. We have been used as a human system / systems, as human systems, plural, all tactically ulterior from the one that generates answers to us. Nature's complete identity relationship to itself. In fact, nature shows us how itself is itself, hyper invisible, but still discernible, distinctly from how itself is itself, invisible, but still discernible, as the parts of speech are about the invisible, but still discernible. But they come with it being about this too. Like for why and how, we need more than one word for a verb. We can discern the individual body of nature itself to an extent. That same one generating two eyes, two sexes across species bodies. 3 parts of time are bound. Like sayings we gather around. Okay. Many pray, please. Elon Musk. And then someone was pretending to be you and your mother. Or what? On X. And then they took my X account away. See, these are people that have wire crime acts and methods recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also with their phones into branch, with their fake transcripts into branch, and with the crime scenes as collusion /S, and with their kids. And that's multiple ages and natures of people involved with the same family /S, and the other ones tied to them at Hartford Hospital with the triage, with the mental health care side, and the judges and prosecutors all personally and professionally involved with the same house /S tied to multiple proven years apart child abusers, leaders, and kids first forced, and the religious spots involved, and untimely deaths and murders brought this up at the same time, and roles with uses remotely the sense and sensibilities of locations, associated names, and like relative probation officers, etc. Murders, people. In other words, too, a bunch of people tied to other journalists too in journalist locations also have the spots and names next to Fox Connecticut News through time, involved with child abusers, leaders, and kids, and with the intelligence families like Domain and Mendez, who are involved intercities and interstates with the international and more sexual and medical, including women, how they have women judges and women teachers, self-by collusion slash S is recorded too, and with a bunch of people that came on my street years apart and made time confessions from other areas. That's how I knew not to respond at all to the Robert Rodriguez, involved too with other people with other untimely deaths. One at Trinity College, not just the ones and others with the air on the street were forced by the police to collusion slash S. All kinds of predicate acts methods. They have other police forms too involved with them. Get them a heck on paper real fast. Start class. Vaccines. And they're trying to they faked other with people tied to some people with the name Carone, a Jamie Carone, a Kevin Carone, a Mark Carone. They're increasingly involved with Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut. They're recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. I didn't even ask them. Even in other words, they have collusions with people with sexual and medical offenders in circles with the kids. It has something to do with their roles with DMV, the Department of Transportation, Education, with their positions and roles with Washington, D.C., and further with the state corrections and judicial branch offices. There's a Perone family and a Kerr family that recorded confessed them in a house across the street from a Perone family, if they still live there, and their roles with people with that, with the international and the former mayors, and roles with people with corners of streets. They also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have federal crimes, federal evidences crimes, and worse, with people associated with the Town Line Drive and Two Route Highway. Town Line Drive and Solstein Highway. And this has also something to do with people with the World Trade Center attack, with the other countries and the town lines. In that shopping center, there are roles with mayors, Joseph Lieberman, his family. These are all the conversations that were brought before and after the World Trade Center. Central Connecticut State University in Britain, Connecticut had collusion slash S, and their motivations were through other. There's also years before that. In other words, they switch officers' names, and they make confessions about that at police departments, and they're hiding their motivations. And that guy was also involved with actual sexual things through times against different women from Wethersfield, from the Britain. A whole bunch of people tied to a Detective Samuda have collusions with former director of the F.B.I. Robert Lusk and his co-defendants, their family members, and their lawyer, and various natures of courts, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the proven sexual medical offenders of kids, and their roles with New Britain intelligence families that are tied to Wethersfield ones, who are also intercities and intra-cities. Rocky Hill campuses further have people tied to the name Guerrero, Luigi Guerrero. They put him around me, but we never spoke, so it could make me look. And they did that with a Paul Zano too, interstates too. These are people that have roles with John Miles' confessions and others from involved with them. I never saw them around my neighbors, but my neighbor recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed as one of the ones involved with the Phil Colo and the police departments through time, putting fake things, and people at Trinity College involved with them with untimely deaths and with F.B.I. corruption with kids and elderly homes. They have my other past neighbor forced to collusions at an elderly home and 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike. A bunch of people that Joshua Stryker had been slandering me with Eric Oliveri. And he said Craig Oliveri is involved with it. I never had a conversation with Craig Oliveri, Eric Oliveri. With a Craig Oliveri or Joshua Stryker. I only know that Craig Oliveri sought me out to plant evidences. And that's recorded. They hid that. He has collusion slash S2 with people with markets positions, Like that building, I don't think it does. The internet's different now. That messed with how I was going to go into the market nice too. I found that DACA stock. Increasingly, my fifth grade teacher has people involved before and after I was in fifth grade with body dumping spots and other natures of organized crimes associated with confessions tied to him and people associated with him. And a Tom Perone said there's a Lori, a Lori, someone with the name Lori. I never met a John Lori or who it was or whether the thing has something to do with his sister. And they make when they have people make sexual confessions about his sister who try to put fake ties to me at their house with the brother different times too, and with a Mark Violet who sought me out on my street to make confessions about that. Also with the Justin Kovinskas. People all along Route 3 in conjunctions to Route 175 in conjunctions to that and to that from the founding locations in Old Weathersfield all the way through Weathersfield, all the way through Newington, and all the way to Central Connecticut State University, and all sides of it are a bunch of people involved with the relatives of the further involved child abusers, leaders of kids, writing forensics, involved with digital crimes, with the FBI and other agencies, foreign and domestic military, divers. These are also families with border states and border countries long connected here since before America's founders, used to cover up live progressions as the breaching method shows them they need to, because everyone used difference/S the way the breaching method showed them to, not the way James Madison showed us to, not the way the plural founders directed us to, not the way nature directs us to. Ugh, who disbelieves? Get them on paper, one name and sequence. Who disbelieves? They're fishing when they use the name Epstein. You're using truths for lies too. You guys are forcing Sandy Hook campuses also has more sexual medical offenders of kids. Now there are more roles with the state judicial branch offices. You're going to pay attention. You're going to get the fuck respond to me, people. Get to get on paper and get them on paper and watch what I caught them doing with the people in the comments. They're messing with the mandated law is that you guys are obligated to respond. Get me off the fake conversations about the World Trade Center attack and with them and with others that the news pretended in New Britain Superior Court. They were hiding up live progressions because I caught them before the World Trade Center attack. New Britain Superior Court in Connecticut and Hartford courts. They effected confessions to me and requests for help. I found out it was tied to the deposition, people associated with the depositions of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, the lawyer, and other natures of foreign, all behind the abuses of leaders of the kids of the leaders of the kids, and abuses of the other kids and adults relative to that. And at each of the campuses, that's ongoing. That's a method. Get them on paper. Watch with the wire crime acts and methods they have. They have every right to lie, used to lie. The whole time they keep repeating about sexual differences, putting that on the same tier as having black people as whites of eyes, and impositions upon people with how the breaching method reassigned black and white. While the suburbs are designed tactically in nature to force people reliant upon criminally foreign influence tactically, the suburbs. Plus, to cause nature's demonstration /S of it, as with negative value, nature progressions, acts, and natures, the breaching method effectively used and uses to keep nature's demonstrations of itself too, forced to blame down other things, others ourselves. And all natures of styles, nature, jobs, titles, sensing for the breaching method. Anyone not set by collusion /S. While you guys are delusions, or I'm not even a doctor, I'll delineate the delusions from their criminally foreign influence, fact, nature, quality aspects, and natures as they brought it involved, faking conversations with me. And people that affected confessions on my streets since I was a kid too, with the same house /S, including involved with police phones, families from Connecticut who had collusions with the World Trade Center attack, and names on both sides of the court case that was next to the World Trade Center in the morning of the attack. And the identity of the court itself too was used remotely, where a sequence shift. Post-dated documents had been post-dated from inside the court insidiously. That was proven after the attack, but that had been presented to the panel of judges that morning. And those are also people intercities and interstates involved with all sides of criminal and civil cases in interbranch form with the same federal evidences crimes, collusion slash S, and use slash S of the location collusion slash S. Let me show you how to learn. Boxings and all at once and turn and turn. So they want to put math. See, math, they want to make it, they have all the answers not up front, especially for math, because there are that if you're really wise and you want to learn about a reality, you're going to be thinking about and observing other things during math classes. People have an excuse slash S, and the breaching method knew they would. By the way, many pray. So the voices of the law are sickly, distinctly had left out what James Madison had declassified for his communications, and it involves not leaving out how nobody had free speech. That's why they had to leave slavery entrenched. We're going to pay attention to how James Madison's plan and the Florida founders forced everyone to speak about slavery, even though it was unallowed. It was against the law. But they got away with it by making everyone fight with each other about it and other things. In other words, they wanted to go real fast, but there was already something entrenched here. A torture, extortion, slavery method, multi-front. Black pupils, here, see whites of eyes. Someone said, some colonel in history said, reportedly said, see the whites of eyes. If we pay attention to what was recorded at the time, a breaching method had reassigned. As James Madison declassified about that breaching method, he wanted nothing to do with slavery, the only founder we know the name of. You guys have the names of the people of the sciences using their knowledge of the good and evil to get over on ourselves, criminally, foreignable, tactically, delusions wrong, pretend things are debatable that are not, pretend things are true that are. Get down. I'll gather around. Vaccines.